which says that whiteness is Satan and that white people are spawns of Satan. Really terrible stuff, also very sexually explicit stuff. So then all of a sudden parents are like waking up to the fact that like, whoa, maybe they've been letting us down in other areas. In Virginia, McAuliffe, who was the Democrat running, he tried to say that critical race theory wasn't being taught in Virginia schools. And actually, it's all on the website. There are documents all over the Virginia Department of Education.
Virginia's election results this week, a nice gift for President Biden to receive upon his arrival back to the United States after attending the world's elite at the Green Globalist Conference COP26. It seems to have shaken the Democrat establishment essentially to the core. With inflation spiking thanks to Democrat spending, largesse, and President Biden seemingly unable to control the wacky and woke elements of his own party, does this all suggest trouble is on the horizon for the Democrats in the midterm elections? Not only did Republican Glenn Youngkin win, but African-American Winsome Sears was victorious in the lieutenant governor race too, with Cuban-American Jason Miyares elected Attorney General, and not to mention Republican victories in the Virginia House of Delegates. Despite all of this, despite that seemingly quite diverse coalition that won Republican tickets across the state, blue checks on Twitter were quick to dismiss the results as the work of white supremacy and dismissed a trending topic during the election, critical race theory being taught and pushed in schools, essentially the indoctrination of children, as fake news. And it looks, folks, like the voters in Virginia don't believe that to be the case. Well, joining me to help try and make sense of how this seismic election will change the American electoral landscape is the spokeswoman for Republican Overseas UK, Sarah Elliott, who also happens to be a Virginian herself. Hi, Sarah.
Hi.
How are you feeling after that election then?
Oh my gosh, fantastic. I mean, as a Virginian, I've been watching it turn blue and bluer, purple to blue, for the last 12 years. So be able to actually do a full sweep of the three top offices plus the House of Delegates turn red, Republican red, it's wonderful, it's vindicating, and I voted. So I'm glad to see my vote count.
Could you see this coming down the track? Did the sort of the way in which the Democrats have shifted further and further to the left on issues, do you think that's responsible for this?
I mean, in large part it is, right? Because let's face it, last year in 2020, Joe Biden won because he wasn't Donald Trump, and also to end the COVID nightmare, which is still ongoing. But it wasn't to elect AOC or Ilhan Omar. It was to basically, let's get politics back to normal the way it used to be. Because, everybody overreacted, in my opinion, to President Trump, and he is a unique character himself. But it was basically to try to get back to normal and calm things down, which of course hasn't happened.
No, you can say that again.
Biden has embraced a very progressive agenda. But I think it doesn't just reflect a national mood, although you can say it does, because in places like New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Long Island, Minneapolis, they all voted Republican or voted down defund the police. It's still very much about local issues and parental rights and what's been happening at the school board meetings and just basically dollars and cents. Glenn Youngkin wants to cut the grocery tax by 2.5%. That is I'm sure any Virginian would be like, yeah, when I go to the grocery store, I want to see my bills cut. And also school choice and education. That is a wonderful bipartisan issue that appeals to independents and Democrats alike, as with Republicans. So, he was a fantastic candidate. He, a successful businessman. This is his first run into politics. He's not controversial, has a beautiful family, has a great life story, and he didn't say anything controversial. He didn't embrace Trump, but he also didn't talk negatively about Trump either. So he kept him at a safe distance. And actually, as it turns out, he's done better than Trump in the rural areas of Virginia.
Wow.
He made red, deep red, and he took away votes from Democrats in the really big Northern Virginia counties of Loudoun and Fairfax.
Well, Sarah, with that said, then, I just want you to listen to and then respond to this clip of Vice President Kamala Harris.
Because you see, what happens in Virginia will in large part determine what happens in 2022, 2024, and on.
She's right, isn't she, Sarah?
Yes, because midterms are referendums on the White House, whoever is in the White House and the administration, and if it's been a red wave basically in some of the bluest areas of the country. So like places like New Jersey have been competitive. There was even a truck driver who ran for office for the first time, spent less than $10,000 and beat one of the most senior politicians at the state level, the state Senate president. I mean, that should be a massive warning sign to the Democrats that they are out of step with the American people.
Yeah. And I mean, ultimately, how much do you think this was? You put it down, you said they're local issues and suggested that, is this a revolt of parents sort of saying, unleashing their instinctive desire to protect their children, Sarah? Do you think actually this whole issue around critical race theory has significantly cut through in the state?
Yeah, I mean, I think what's been playing out actually across the country has been parents speaking up in defense of their children to the COVID regulations, and that the public school system has across the country has really severely failed American children in the classroom, not following the science as it relates to, the spread of the virus in children, and not putting the mental health and the education and the well-being of the children first. So I think that was a big initiative that started this. And then when more and more parents started getting involved, they realized what kind of books are in their children's school. Like the book, I think the title is My Idea, which says that whiteness is Satan and that white people are spawns of Satan. Really terrible stuff, also very sexually explicit stuff. So then all of a sudden parents are like waking up to the fact that like, whoa, maybe they've been letting us down in other areas. In Virginia, McAuliffe, who was the Democrat running, he tried to say that critical race theory wasn't being taught in Virginia schools. And actually, it's all on the website. There are documents all over the Virginia Department of Education that recommends reading Robin DiAngelo, White Fragility. And then also that because Black students have a higher suspension rate, you should decrease the number of suspensions for Black children because they are at a disadvantage for being Black. So things of that nature. So it is out there. And the thing is, it's so much in the culture now, and it's so much in the media that parents know that it's going to seep down. Now, did I know that Virginia would respond the way it did on Tuesday? No, I was very hopeful. But in this day and age, especially post-COVID, which I think has changed everyone's lives, and it's just how everybody perceives it's quite differently. When I heard Terry McAuliffe say that parents shouldn't be involved in their children's education or shouldn't get involved with what teachers teach their children in school, and I thought, if this doesn't cause a revolution, if this doesn't make parents rise up, then we are really in a bad place as a country. We're either really disengaged, or we don't care, or we want the state to come in and indoctrinate our children. But when I saw the parents push back on that issue, and it needs to be noted that in October, the economy did not become the top election issue or the voting issue for Virginians. Education became the number one issue. And Youngkin just capitalized on that as a really good politician and a really great campaign. And fortunately, it did motivate parents, independents, and Democrats to say, hang on a second, we are the ones in charge of their education first, and you work for us.
Sarah, can we play this clip from MSNBC, which is a liberal, or for the English audience, a British audience, a left-wing broadcaster, which dismisses critical race theory as essentially being Republican fake news?
What is happening in sort of Republican America, it's not just critical race theory. It's saying, fraud happened. Their people believe there was fraud, so they're fixing it. So Republican voters think Republicans are fake. Never mind that it's fake.
That's right.
Critical race theory isn't taught. It means something different to voters. They think it is. So Republicans are fixing it. Youngkin's going to ban it. And some of it is just a question for Democrats now. Do you adjust to a terrain that is not fair, that is not just, that is all fact-based, but that at this tonight looks like it advantages Republicans?
I mean, are you guilty of propagating fake news, Sarah?
Not when every single Vogue magazine and Harper's Bazaar and every Times magazine or whatever the popular news outlet is actually reading Kendi and is quoting D'Angelo and is talking about reparations. This is real. This is really happening. They want to segregate our children by race. They want to put white children at a disadvantage. So it's anti-white racism. But not only that, it also undermines Black people and making them think that, yes, go and rob the Boots or the local CVS, or you can shoplift because you're Black, or you can commit crime because you're Black. What are you saying? What are you saying about Black people? That they can't be law-abiding and successful people on their own right? Of course they can.
And what I'm struck by is that this, to me, looks like gaslighting, right? If Trump said something which was demonstrably untrue, like this, for example, right, saying that critical race theory isn't being taught in schools, it's fake news and all the rest of it, he would have had these, those disclaimers on Twitter and all of these other things. He would have been told that he was guilty of propagating fake news and all of these other things, wouldn't he?
Oh, well, yes. I mean, actually, I kind of would like to see what would happen to these people if he came out and said critical race theory isn't taught. Like they would all be like, oh, do we have to agree with the orange man? Do we? Wait. He said it? No, he didn't say that. They would actually twist his words the other way around. I mean, their obsession with Donald Trump is just over and beyond. But what I actually like about this race, in particular the Glenn Youngkin race, is that it showed the country, and should scare the HE double hockey sticks out of the Democrats, that you can run a Republican and people will not associate that candidate with Trump. Mm-hmm. Like, people can separate Trump from other Republicans. And I think also the other thing is, you cannot continue to say that Republicans are white supremacists and that they are the evil party and get away with it.
I mean, there was even attempts to paint Youngkin as being the candidate for white supremacists. You had them stood outside the campaign bus, didn't you? And this all turned out to be, quote unquote, fake news. And you just sort of think, these people that have championed this sort of narrative about Republicans since 2016 have been exposed, earlier than that, before 2016, have been exposed as being proponents of it themselves, right? As the ultimate fake news factory. But I want to, staying on that issue, I think this clip was really, really quite shocking. This was also on MSNBC, which, by the way, Sarah, I have never watched before, and I have no intention of doing so. They seem to be so crazy. But there seem to be attempts to dismiss incoming Lieutenant Governor Winsome Sears as being a black mouth moving but a white idea running. That's not my words, that's their words. Now, Sarah, I can't imagine a more racist sentiment that seems to be suggesting that an elected black official doesn't have her own agency, that a black person can't possibly believe in Republican ideas and values, Sarah, that she must be a patsy. It's one of the most racist rants I've ever heard. With that in mind, have a watch and I'll have you respond to that after.
The problem is here, they want white supremacy by ventriloquist effect. There is a black mouth moving, but a white idea through the running on the runway of the tongue of a figure who justifies and legitimates the white supremacist practices. We know that we can internalize in our own minds, in our own subconscious, in our own bodies, the very principles that are undoing us. So to have a black face speaking in behalf of a white supremacist legacy is nothing new. And it is to the chagrin of those of us who study race that the white folk on the other side and the right wingers on the other side don't understand this is politics 101 and this is race, not even 101. What's beneath 101?
Sarah, is that true? Is it race 101 and we just, we on the right just are blind to it? We don't understand, and actually that we are the racists. They're not the racists who are arguing that a black candidate who has been elected doesn't actually believe what she's saying and that she's nothing more than a mouthpiece for white people.
I mean, I can't believe it's being said in 2021.
I know.
And he's talking about someone of his own race.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that really gets to me is it reeks of misogyny, which of course Joy Reid, the presenter, doesn't even intervene on, but she should. I mean, this is a black woman can't speak for herself. She can't make her own decisions. This woman who signed up and joined the Marines before she was even a naturalized citizen to this country, unbelievable that he would treat someone of his own race and then a woman on top of it as a minstrel, as a puppet. And it shouldn't be aired on TV. This man shouldn't ever be allowed to have a microphone again. This is poisonous.
Yeah, it's racism.
And it's racist. And Joy Reid is a venomous person who puts poison out on TV. And I've seen her several other times talk about people and issues, and it shouldn't even be given airtime. So don't waste any more of your time on MSNBC, Darren.
Yes, no, I won't. But Sarah, Trump said afterwards that there was no way that Youngkin would have won without MAGA voters, right? Do you think that the Republican Party will be able to actually marry the two coalitions? You've got the MAGA caucus and indeed the more traditional GOP set, your more sort of Reaganite voters, I guess. Is there a way in which you can build the two and carry them forward into 2024?
We have to win. We have to understand that politics is a team sport. And that, yes, we need the MAGA supporters, but we also need the supporters in the suburbs. And above all, we need independents to win. And independents resoundingly went against President Trump in the last election. So he cannot be our candidate. And I know this will upset some of your viewers and supporters, but his message was fantastic and right for the country, which is why I supported him and I voted for him. But he's not the right messenger. He clearly is too Marmite and too divisive, and that's hard to hear. Whoever is the candidate will probably need his blessing to some degree to get out the base and what have you. But I think in order to take back the country, on a large scale, we need those suburban voters. We need those independent voters. I mean, and Glenn Youngkin is a candidate, is a model candidate for how we can do that. Joe Biden won Virginia by 10 points, and a Republican won it a year later by 2.5 points. That's a 12.5 point turnaround in a year. So it can happen, but we have to be clever. We have to be wise. And I'm not doing this to stir the pot with my other Republican supporters, but I want us to be thinking of the big picture, and that not all of us, and this is the other thing, I really think Americans don't like going back to difficult times. The 4 years of the Trump administration was very difficult for our country, and it was difficult for our families who are divided politically. We are an optimistic, future-looking country. I think this is one reason why independents didn't want to stomach another Clinton administration. We just want to keep moving. And I'm afraid that Trump would be taking us back. Plus, he'll be the age of Joe Biden now. And we see what having someone so mature and on in years.
That's a polite way of putting it, yeah.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
We need new energy.
So who are the candidates then that you are sort of have in mind already for 2024?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to look at former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. He's running in my book. Mike Pence, the former Vice President, although I'm doubtful he will get the nomination. Everything revolving around the election in January 6th. But Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, is clearly the front runner. He's been able to keep his state open. He's been keeping his COVID deaths and rates in line with the pack. They haven't been. He's proven that you can have an open and free society and still survive the COVID pandemic, or at least not fail. And I think he also he weighs in on the culture war, and he is not afraid to stand up.
Which is a lesson
race
to learn from Youngkin, isn't it? That the culture war has to be taken and tackled head on. Youngkin didn't shy away from these issues.
No, but he posed them and phrased them in a way that was digestible for independents and Democrats. And he didn't sound like someone from Breitbart or even the Daily Wire. Okay. He sounded like somebody from the pages of the Wall Street Journal. And that may be unappetizing to the MAGA base. But again, if you find this is why Ron DeSantis is appealing, because he kind of does sound like he's from Breitbart or Daily Wire. He has good sound bites, but he also, I don't think, goes too far. So he is appealing and appetizing for, maybe your Financial Times type reader or your Wall Street Journal reader. I think you have to marry the two. And neither party, by the way, this is the problem why we're in such a predicament politically, is that neither party has been able to find this balance within themselves where the fringe and the more extreme side isn't dominating. Listen, I am not a moderate on my issues. I just want to put that out there.
You are a conservative, yeah.
I am a conservative. I'm small government. I'm pro-life. I'm pro-Second Amendment. I want to cut the deficit. I want to do supply side economics, and I'm strong on national defense. But, I want us to take back the White House. And we have to play game.
Yeah. Well, politics, right? Such as politics.
Yeah.
But I mean, you mentioned the truck driver turned Republican candidate who won it was New Jersey, wasn't it? New Jersey State Senate. And that was thought to be a Democrat stronghold. Now, he was called Edward Durr, and he spent a fraction of that spent by his Democrat competitor, as you mentioned earlier. I mean, how have the Biden Democrats basically got it so badly wrong so fast as well, at breakneck speed? And do you think they're actually going to learn the lessons from what's happened now?
I don't know if they can learn the lessons. I mean, I think they'll definitely pander. They will try to say the right words. But the problem is that the people who surround Joe Biden are people who are in the most elite positions of corporate America, who have been in Washington for a long time, who are just out of touch with the American people in general. And I think actually there's a part of Joe Biden who wants to be seen as kind of a transformational president, like a progressive transformational president. And maybe in a way he's competing with Barack Obama for that title. I think he's trying to please the future leaders of his party, the loudmouths such as Ilhan Omar and Presley and AOC and that sort. But I also think a lot of his supporters come from the coastal cities who are also completely out of touch with middle America or working class America. And you see that in the election of now State Senator Durr, the truck driver, who, by the way, New Jersey, we just write it off. Would never think
so
that.
So just for an English audience, Sarah, this is like losing parts of County Durham to the Labour Party, right?
Yeah.
This is tantamount to that.
Like Hartlepool.
Yeah.
I don't even remember the last. New Jersey did vote Reagan because every state voted Reagan in 1984 except for I think Washington D.C. But I mean,
unprecedented almost, yeah.
yeah.
Isn't it sort of interesting that the two parallels, you've got a similar movement happening here in the UK as you do in the United States as well, where traditionally sort of, what would be seen as being left-wing, so left-wing that you can't touch those areas, are suddenly coming round to, because they're so turned off, so repulsed by the pandering to Twitter's wackery and wokery, right?
Yeah. And I think about, how did this all start? Like, how has the Democrats and the Labor Party been taken over by these very far left ideas and the identity politics? And I think it starts from the universities. So the university systems, the elite universities, the Ivies in America, the Oxford and Cambridge
Yeah.
and LSE or what have you here in the UK, they churn out these ideologues who then get into positions of power and influence, and they end up making the money, they end up becoming the donors, or they end up, and they're just very sympathetic to this way of thinking, and they think it's the way of the future, but they're so encapsulated in their elitist bubbles in these metropolitan cities, and then they fly to the likes of Saint-Tropez or Nantucket or Martha's Vineyard, and they don't intersect with the everyday worker, and they find it just part of the job of being a politician, but they don't really understand the issues facing them. And the worst thing for them, I think this stems back to Brexit as well. The worst thing for them is to be socially isolated within these elite circles of power and influence. So what they don't want to do is not be invited to the right parties, not being accepted by the right smart people. They also don't want these people to primary them in a challenge. Not that you can do that in the UK, but in America, they don't want to be on the outs of what is cool and what is the status quo. They don't want to be canceled.
Yeah.
And they are afraid that, and I think this stems from this really elite way of thinking of the world from our ivory tower institutions.
And I wonder then, Sarah, thinking about what Biden has been up to this week, and indeed many global leaders around the world, in Glasgow for COP26.
Sleeping.
Well, sleeping, yeah, falling asleep. But that putting his falling asleep to one side, how much do you think this is going to be a battleground issue in 2024? Because they're talking about some pretty radical stuff, right? Biden's green agenda and the spending commitments are pretty extreme, or at least his attempts at spending commitments and the green agenda. It's not really clear whether or not he's going to be able to get anything through. But I'm wondering, how much do you think this is going to be a battleground? Because you're telling people, whilst you're flying halfway around the world over the transatlantic, to come here and lecture everyone on not flying, not eating meat, on food, energy bills going up, and just basically the energy secretary was on Bloomberg earlier today, Sarah, and laughed at the suggestion that it was up to her and her administration to actually reduce costs for everyday Americans. I'm wondering, how much do you think this is going to really become a battleground issue when everyday Americans start to feel that punch in their pockets?
Oh, I would be very surprised if anything comes out of COP26 that's actually implemented in the United States. And I say that because of what happened on Tuesday, and that people really care about what they're paying at the gas pump. And their gas prices are going almost up, if not more than $100 a month now, to just get around and live their life. That has a huge impact on the average working family. And in America, you need a car. Places are at far distances. That's just a way of life. Yeah. I just don't. Again, inflation. He can't even get an infrastructure bill through right now. He has no accomplishments to his administration a year later, except for a COVID spending bill, which has pushed inflation up over 4%, I think almost 5% now, and he's disgracefully removed us from Afghanistan, okay? And he's put Americans into the hands of terrorists as well as our allies. So I just don't, if he can't even pass an infrastructure spending bill, which has bipartisan support, He's not going to get any of this green agenda through. And also, you can just forget about getting anything done next year or by May of next year, because everybody will be campaigning for November. It'll be the midterm election. So really, they have until the end of this year, this calendar year, and maybe the first months of 2022. But really, come second quarter of next year, everybody's in re-election campaign mode. And they have nothing to run on, the Democrats, except inflationary spending, which even Democrats and independents don't want. The Biden has lost his coalition with Sinema of Arizona and Manchin of West Virginia. They will not bend.
Yeah.
They will not stack the Supreme Court.
Did you see
They
the
will not
hounding
bend
of them? The hounding of those two for daring to actually say we need some restraint. That's a real. You talk about cancel culture and things like that. That's not cancel culture. They are basically attempts to intimidate, to
Oh, it's
bully.
bullying.
It is to bully them for their political beliefs, and you just think this is a sign of I think the corrosion of the Democratic Party, right? I think this isn't good.
Oh, yeah. No, and it's the takeover of like Marxist thinking and behavior, right?
Yeah, as
And
you said,
the-
it's that university culture seeping through, isn't it?
Yes, yes. I will never put my children, I will never urge or strongly encourage my children to go to Ivy League now. Not at all. My husband might come back and be like, Sarah, don't say that. But I don't want them in that
No.
world. And I
No.
want them with normal, everyday people making a good living and working hard for it. Not that people who go to Ivies don't work hard for their living, but they live in a universe, in a cloud that is not based in reality. I don't like their values, and I don't want my children to reflect them or take them on board. It is, and this is the other thing with critical race theory, by the way, which is really just a race-based form of old Marxism to make white people feel guilty and redistribute their wealth, right? To beat down white people and then say, now you owe us money. You owe us your money. For reparations and what have you. So it's all linked, the harassing in the bathroom of Senator Sinema, that with the camera. And then you have the critical race theory in the classroom. It's all part of the same genre and the same idea of, and also Antifa, by the way, the violent anti-fascist group, which actually acts as fascists. And
Yeah,
they are
absolutely.
violent. And they are murderous, and they do not seek peace or stability. They seek chaos and anarchy. And all of this is all linked and related. And the one thing that gave me real hope for the United States was that people of all different political stripes in different parts of the country came together and refuted that and voted. Not by huge margins, like the Edward Durr, the truck driver, won by 2,000 votes, but that took a lot of Democrats and independents to say no,
Yeah.
to turn the way they've always voted. And I think all he had was an iPhone video his nephew took, and it went viral. And that's also the beauty of American democracy. I think this should give people hope that to never underestimate the American people, that when crises arise, we rise up, we fight back. And I think there is hope for a new dawn in America and beyond this wokeism, PC, political correctness, identity politics, everything, all this junk. I hope we're at the peak. I'm not sure, but I hope that we'll keep pushing back. When you have Bill Maher on your side and Dave Chappelle, you're kind of doing something right, and maybe there's a silver lining somewhere. But yeah, it's a good day for America.
Thank you so much for watching this video. Reasoned is a grassroots organisation that's entirely funded by people like yourself. So if you're in a position to do so, please do consider supporting us by clicking the link to the side there.